What will you do if you find prejudice and bullying in your own establishment? The Grand Obsidian Hotel, a name whispered with reverence, a monument to opulence, a gilded cage of privilege. Crystal chandeliers dripped like frozen waterfalls, casting a shimmering light on marble floors polished to a blinding sheen. Here, wealth wasn't just displayed. It was weaponized, a bludgeon against the hopes and dreams of those deemed lesser. And today, Michael, a young black man with fire in his belly and a quiet dignity in his eyes, walked through those hallowed doors, ready to face the beast within. He carried not just his resume, but the weight of generations, the echoes of injustice ringing in his ears. He sought opportunity, a chance to prove his worth in a world that had already judged him by the color of his skin. But the Grand Obsidian wasn't about opportunity. It was about preserving the status quo, about keeping the right people on top and everyone else beneath their polished, expensive heels. Little did they know, the man they were about to dismiss was about to turn their world upside down. Michael approached the concierge desk, a monument of polished mahogany, his heart pounding a hopeful rhythm against his ribs. He'd rehearsed his introduction 100 times, eager to make a strong first impression. But the man behind the desk, Mr. Henderson, a fleshy tower of indifference, didn't even bother to look up. Name, he grunted, the word a dismissive pellet fired from his lips. Michael replied, his voice firm despite the prickle of unease. Michael Thompson. I'm a new concierge. Henderson's eyes finally flicked upwards, raking over Michael with a slow, appraising gaze that landed somewhere between suspicion and outright disdain. A sneer twisted his lips. Thompson? We don't have a Thompson on the schedule. Must be another clerical error. Happens all the time with your kind. The last two words hung in the air, thick with unspoken venom. Before Michael could respond, a white couple, dripping in designer labels and radiating an air of entitled superiority, swept up to the desk. Henderson's transformation was instantaneous. The sneer vanished, replaced by a sycophantic smile. Ah, Mr. and Mrs. Billingsworth. Welcome back to the Grand Obsidian. It's always a pleasure. He practically oozed charm, completely ignoring Michael, who stood there, invisible, as if he'd suddenly become a part of the mahogany desk itself. As Henderson ushered the Billingsworths towards the elevators, Mrs. Billingsworth cast a withering glance at Michael, her lips curling into a sneer that mirrored Henderson's earlier disdain. She muttered something to her husband, the words, cleaning crew, drifting back like shards of ice. The casual cruelty, the effortless dismissal, was a slap in the face, a stark reminder that in this world of glittering facades, the color of his skin was a brand, a mark of inferiority. The weight of generations of prejudice settled on Michael's shoulders, heavy and suffocating. This wasn't just a bad first impression, it was a declaration of war. The day stretched on, a relentless grind of microaggressions and outright insults. Michael was mistaken for a bellhop, ordered to fetch coffee for the white staff, and denied access to the employee break room. One particularly humiliating incident occurred when a guest, Mr. Billingsworth, dropped his luggage in the lobby. He sneered at Michael. "Pick that up, boy," tossing a crumpled dollar bill at his feet. Michael, though hurt and angry, maintained his composure. He picked up the luggage, handed it to Mr. Billingsworth with a polite smile, and walked away, the dollar bill still lying on the floor. He reminded himself why he was here. He would not let their prejudice deter him. Later that afternoon, as Michael was assisting a guest with their luggage, he overheard a conversation between two staff members. One was complaining about the new help, referring to Michael, while the other laughed in agreement. Their words stung, but Michael remained outwardly calm. He knew that the best way to fight back was to excel at his job, to prove that he was more than just the help. As the day drew to a close, Michael's exhaustion was palpable. He longed for the solitude of his apartment, a sanctuary where he could shed the mask of professionalism and let his true emotions flow. But before he could leave, he was summoned to Mr. Henderson's office. His heart sank. He knew what was coming. Mr. Henderson sat behind his desk, his face flushed with anger. "Thompson," he barked, "I've been watching you all day. You're lazy, incompetent, and disrespectful. You're not fit to work here. Michael stood tall, his eyes meeting Henderson's. I have not been lazy or incompetent, he said, his voice steady. And I have not disrespected anyone. I've been treated with disrespect, but I haven't reciprocated. Henderson scoffed. Don't try to play the victim. You're just another angry black man looking for handouts. Michael's anger flared, but he managed to keep it under control. I'm not angry because I'm black. I'm angry because I'm being treated unfairly. Henderson leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowed. Listen, Thompson, I'm the one in charge here. You're just a new employee. You don't have a right to speak to me like that. Michael took a deep breath. I understand that you're in charge, but I also have rights. And I'm not going to stand for being treated like this. Henderson's face turned red. He slammed his fist on the desk, sending a jolt of fear through Michael. Get out of my office, and don't come back until you've learned your place. Michael turned and walked out, his head held high. He knew he hadn't done anything wrong, and he wasn't going to let Henderson intimidate him. He was determined to prove himself, to show the world that he was more than just a stereotype. The next morning, the grand ballroom of the Grand Obsidian Hotel, usually reserved for lavish weddings and high society galas, was buzzing with a different kind of energy. The hotel staff, from the meticulously groomed front desk personnel to the bustling kitchen staff, filled the room, a sea of anxious faces. Mr. Henderson, his usual swagger replaced by a nervous fidgeting, paced back and forth near the podium, occasionally glancing at his watch. He'd called this mandatory staff meeting a rare occurrence, and the air crackled with speculation. Rumors swirled about new management, budget cuts, even whispers of the hotel being sold. No one suspected the truth. As the clock ticked closer to the appointed time, the room grew quieter, the murmur of conversation fading into an uneasy silence. Henderson, sensing the rising tension, cleared his throat and tapped the microphone. All right, everyone, settle down, he barked, his voice echoing through the vast space. He adjusted his tie, trying to project an air of authority he clearly didn't feel. As you know, there's been a lot of change lately. And today, we're going to hear directly from... He trailed off, his eyes widening as he spotted Michael, standing near the back of the room. Thompson? What are you doing here? He sneered, his voice laced with the same disdain he'd shown Michael on his first day. This meeting is for staff only. He gestured dismissively, as if shooing away a stray dog. Go on, get out of here. Unless you're here to clean up after the real staff. Michael didn't move. He simply looked at Henderson, a strange glint in his eyes that Henderson couldn't quite decipher. Before Henderson could press the issue, the double doors at the back of the ballroom swung open, revealing a small group of impeccably dressed individuals. Leading the pack was a distinguished-looking older gentleman, Mr. Thompson Sr., as former lawyer, Mr. Abernathy. Behind him were several members of the hotel's board of directors, their faces grim and serious. Henderson's jaw dropped. He stared at the newcomers, his carefully constructed facade of authority crumbling before his eyes. Mr. Abernathy? What's going on? He stammered, his voice barely a whisper. He knew something was terribly wrong. The presence of the lawyer, combined with Michael's unexpected appearance, sent a chill down his spine. He had a sinking feeling that his carefully constructed world of privilege and prejudice was about to be shattered. Abernathy cleared his throat, the sound cutting through the stunned silence like a knife. He surveyed the room, his gaze lingering for a moment on Henderson's bewildered face. Good morning, everyone, he announced, his voice resonating with authority. I'm here today to introduce the new owner of the Grand Obsidian Hotel. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Mr. Michael Thompson, Jr. A collective gasp swept through the ballroom. Heads swiveled, eyes darted towards Michael, who stood calmly at the back of the room, his expression composed, almost serene. The murmurs started, low at first, then rising in volume, a mixture of disbelief, confusion, and dawning realization. Thompson? The new owner? The words echoed through the room, incredulous. Henderson's face was a mask of shock. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. He looked from Abernathy to Michael, his eyes wide with disbelief. But he's just the new concierge, he stammered, the words catching in his throat. Abernathy ignored him, his attention focused on Michael. "Mr. Thompson," he said, gesturing towards the front of the room. "Would you like to say a few words?" Michael stepped forward, his movements smooth and confident. He walked towards the podium, his gaze sweeping over the assembled staff, meeting their astonished, sometimes fearful, eyes. He reached the podium and paused, taking a deep breath before he began to speak. "I've spent the last few days working undercover as a concierge," he explained, his voice clear and strong, filling the ballroom. "I wanted to experience firsthand the environment you've created here. And what I've discovered is deeply troubling." He paused, his eyes hardening. "I've witnessed and experienced blatant racism, discrimination, and disrespect. I've been mistaken for a bellhop, ordered to fetch coffee, and denied access to the employee break room. I've been called boy and treated with contempt simply because of the color of my skin." He looked directly at Henderson, his gaze unwavering. "And I've been told by Mr. Henderson, the head concierge, that people like me are not fit to work here." A hush fell over the room. The staff members exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked ashamed, others looked frightened, and still others looked defiant. Henderson shifted uncomfortably, his face flushed crimson. He opened his mouth to speak, to deny the accusations, but no words came out. He knew he was caught. The silence in the ballroom was thick enough to cut with a knife. Faces flushed with shame, fear, and a dawning realization of the gravity of the situation. Henderson, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him, stammered, attempting to formulate a defense, but his words were weak, hollow, and ultimately futile. He knew he was exposed, his prejudice laid bare for all to see. Billingsworth, who happened to be staying at the hotel, his face contorted in a mixture of anger and panic, tried to slip out of the room unnoticed. He was intercepted by security guards, their presence a stark reminder of the power Michael now wielded. Michael continued, his voice resonating with a newfound authority, a righteous anger that vibrated through the room. "This kind of behavior will not be tolerated at the Grand Obsidian," he declared, his gaze sweeping across the stunned faces before him. "I believe in treating everyone with respect, regardless of their race, background, or any other arbitrary distinction. Those who cannot adhere to this fundamental principle have no place here." He then announced a series of immediate policy changes, designed to dismantle the culture of prejudice that had festered within the hotel walls. Mandatory diversity and inclusion training was to be implemented for all staff, effective immediately. A zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind was established, with clear and severe consequences for violations. And a review of hiring and promotion practices was initiated to ensure fairness and equal opportunity for all. His words hung in the air, a challenge and a promise. The old order had been overthrown. A new era had begun at the Grand Obsidian Hotel, an era defined by justice, equality, and respect. In the immediate aftermath, Mr. Henderson and several other staff members who had demonstrably engaged in discriminatory behavior were escorted from the hotel, their careers at the Grand Obsidian abruptly terminated. A palpable tension hung in the air, a mixture of shock, uncertainty, and a flicker of hope. Other staff members, those who had witnessed the injustices but remained silent out of fear or apathy, cautiously approached Michael, their apologies hesitant but sincere. They pledged their commitment to creating a more inclusive and respectful environment, their words carrying the weight of newfound awareness. Michael, though weary from the emotional toll of the past few days, embraced their willingness to change. He spent the following weeks working closely with the remaining staff, guiding them through the newly implemented policies and fostering a culture of understanding and empathy. The initial resistance from some quickly dissipated as they witnessed the positive impact of the changes, the hotel atmosphere shifting from one of veiled hostility to one of genuine camaraderie. He also reached out to community leaders and organizations dedicated to fighting racism and promoting diversity, seeking their guidance and support in ensuring the changes were sustainable and impactful. The Grand Obsidian's reputation, once tarnished by the discriminatory actions of a few, began its slow but steady climb towards recovery, fueled by Michael's unwavering commitment to justice and equality. The guests, initially surprised by the changes, started noticing the shift in the hotel's atmosphere. They appreciated the newfound warmth and inclusivity, often commenting on the positive changes they observed. The hotel reviews, once filled with complaints about the staff's attitude, began to reflect the positive transformation, with guests praising the welcoming and respectful environment. Michael's actions extended far beyond the walls of the Grand Obsidian. His story, initially whispered among the staff, soon spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of other hotel owners, industry leaders, and even the local media. He became an unexpected symbol of change, a voice for those who had been silenced for too long. He was invited to speak at industry conferences, sharing his experiences and advocating for greater diversity and inclusion in the hospitality sector. He didn't shy away from the difficult conversations, challenging the ingrained biases and systemic racism that had plagued the industry for generations. He became a mentor, offering guidance and support to other Black professionals navigating the often unequal playing field of the hospitality world. The Grand Obsidian, under Michael's leadership, transformed into more than just a luxury hotel. It became a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of one person to make a difference. He implemented scholarship programs for underprivileged youth interested in hospitality, opening doors to opportunities that would have otherwise been closed to them. He partnered with local schools and community organizations to provide internships for students from diverse backgrounds, giving them a chance to gain valuable experience and break into the industry. He understood that true luxury wasn't just about elegant decor and impeccable service. It was about creating a welcoming and inclusive environment for everyone, regardless of their background. Reflecting on his journey, Michael realized that his father's legacy wasn't just about owning a successful hotel. It was about using his position to create positive change in the world. He understood that true success wasn't measured in wealth or prestige, but in the impact he had on the lives of others. He had faced prejudice head-on, not with bitterness or resentment, but with courage, determination, and a deep-seated belief in the power of equality. He had turned a place of privilege into a platform for change, transforming the Grand Obsidian from a symbol of exclusivity into a symbol of inclusivity. And as he looked out at the bustling lobby of the Grand Obsidian, now filled with a diverse mix of guests and staff, Michael knew that his father would be proud. He had honored his legacy, not just by inheriting the hotel, but by inheriting his values, his commitment to justice, and his belief in the inherent worth of every human being. His story became an inspiration, a reminder that even in the face of deeply ingrained prejudice, one person with courage and conviction can create real and lasting change. The echoes of injustice still lingered, but they were now overshadowed by the resounding chorus of hope, a testament to the transformative power of a disguised hotel owner who dared to challenge the status quo and create a world where everyone felt welcome, valued, and respected. Has anyone ever tried to harass you or exploit you in some way? Let's talk about it. Share your experiences and how you dealt with the situation in the comments. If you enjoyed this and want more content on Inspiring Black Stories channel like this, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and remember, respect is earned, not freely given.